Okay, there we are. So let people in. Hello there, black squares. Well, I got a picture of Damien. There's some people.
Saludos. Hi, Nacho.
So hello, we're Anna Monica and I are in different coasts, different edges of the United States.
Yes.
I'm in sunny, cool Massachusetts. What is the weather like in San Francisco, Anna Monica? Is it?
Yeah, it's sunny and gorgeous. It is not cold at all. Yeah.
Okay.
So yesterday, first day of spring, was really lovely as well.
So I'm actually at IMS, the Insight Meditation Society, which was founded by Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, and Sharon Salzberg, where they have very, very short reading here. This is a translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi. This is in my room, just in case I couldn't sleep. I guess they figured I would want to read this. Samyutta Nikaya, translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi. I mean, that's just amazing. But I'm in what's called the Teacher's Village. So these were literally like houses set up for the teachers, but then COVID came, so no teachers have actually stayed here. So then they decided to offer them for self-retreat. And they're living large. I mean, it's so nice. I give you a little view of the space. Like this is not exactly what you expect on a meditation retreat. You know, I was expecting a little room like this, and it's like, wow. Let's see if you could see the view out the window. It's just very nice. Massachusetts, Barre, Massachusetts. So I'll be here for 8 days. Next Sunday, because I'm going to be en route, Anna Monica will lead our group. I'm sure she'll do a much better job than I do. Yeah, thank you. I may be able to tap in by phone from my drive, but we'll see. Assuming everything goes as planned, on Monday, the 29th, then I'll be in Madrid. Yeah. We shall see, I hope. Anyway, so we will do a little meditation. I am going to do my best to lead it kind of in a style that Bhikkhu Analayo, who just, by the way, lives down the road here, he lives at the Barre Buddhist Studies, Barre School of Buddhist Studies, something
Center
like that.
for Buddhist Studies.
What is it called?
Center for.
Barre Center for Buddhist Studies, which is just the next property down from where I am now. So I'll try to lead as he does regarding the elements. Okay, so last week we did the atomical parts, the body parts. So today we'll do the elements. he often will combine the two, but I think that will take up too much time. And, I'd like to give you guys time in silence. So I'll just do the elements, which means we're going to do 4 body scans for the 4 elements. And then after that, you can, do whatever you want, continue to scan, or maybe do the samatha practice. So yeah, everyone, you can all hear me okay, right? Okay. Yeah, even they have Wi-Fi in the rooms. This not really that conducive to a self-retreat, but I've got my phone on airplane mode and just this. Okay, so let me turn on my timer. We'll still go 30 minutes. And then because I don't have a bell, we'll let the phone be the bell. There we go. So find a comfortable posture, relaxing the attention into the body, like the body relaxes on the chair, on the cushion, on the bed. So just taking a moment to be aware that you are sitting. Be aware of the body's posture of sitting, most likely, maybe it could be laying down or standing. This is one of the practices of mindfulness of the body, is to be aware of the body's posture. So we're going to start with the earth element. And the earth element is normally associated with solidity, solidez. So starting with the head, we know or we recognize that there is the earth element in our head. There is solidity in the head. So this takes a little bit of conceptualizing. But just try to imagine you can feel, become aware of the solidity in your head. So mainly the bone, right? The skull, the jaw, those parts of the head that are solid, or we think of as solid. So knowing the head has the earth element, or that the earth element is present in the head. Going to the neck, connecting with the solid parts of the neck, the spinal cord, for instance, the vertebrae, knowing that there is the earth element in the neck. Moving to the shoulders. So we want to feel the shoulders, connect with the shoulders, become aware of the shoulders, and then become aware that there is the earth element in the shoulders. Solidity, the density. And now the upper arms. knowing that there is the earth element in the upper arms, the lower arms, earth element, the hands, earth element, the upper torso, the chest, the shoulder blades, knowing that there is earth element in the upper torso, there is solidity, there is density. The lower torso, earth element. The hips, knowing there is earth element in the hips. The upper legs, earth element. Lower legs, earth element. Feet, earth element. So we are aware that this body that is sitting contains the earth element inside, and that the earth element exists externally as well. They are the same. There is no difference. Internally, externally, the earth element. And both are not something we own nor can control. They are empty. So now we'll do the water element, starting where we left off with the feet. So the water can be identified by the various liquids that are in the body, which there are many, including the blood and the oxygenated blood that moves out to our cells. So with the feet, we know that the water element is present in our feet. Our lower legs, the water element is present in the lower legs. Upper legs, water element. Hips, water element. Lower torso, we know that the water element is present in the lower torso. Upper torso, water element. The hands, water element. The lower arms, water element. Upper arms, we know that the water element is present in the upper arms. The shoulders, water element. The neck, water element. the head. We know that the water element is present in the head. And we know that the water element is present in this body internally, and that the water element is present externally in the world around us, and that they are the same, that there is no difference. And we can't control the water element, nor do we own it. It is empty. So now we will do the fire element. So the fire element is associated with temperature, which temperature is probably most easily recognized at the level of the skin, but sometimes we can also experience the temperature within the body as well. Starting with the head. We know that the fire element is present in the head. The neck. We know the fire element is present in the neck. The shoulders, fire element. Lower arms, fire element. Upper arms, fire element. Hands. We know the fire element is present in the hands. Upper torso. We know the fire element is present in the upper torso. Lower torso, fire element. Hips, fire element. Upper legs. We know the fire element is present in the upper legs. Lower legs, fire element. Feet, fire element. So we know the fire element is present in this sitting body internally, and that the fire element is present externally in the world around us, and that they are the same, that there is no difference, and we do not own it, nor can we control it. It is empty. And finally, the wind element. So the wind element is associated with movement, with vibration, with circulation. And it is often most easily connected with the breath. And the breath, in one way or another, passes throughout the body, carried by the blood, the oxygen. And so long as this body is alive, we breathe. So starting where we left off with the feet, connect with the feet, and become aware. We know that the wind element is present in the feet. The lower legs, wind element. Upper legs, wind element. The hips, we know that the wind element is present in the hips. Lower torso, wind element. Upper torso, wind element. The hands, we know the wind element is present in the hands. Lower arms, wind element. Upper arms, wind element. Shoulders, we know the wind element is present in the shoulders. The neck, wind element. The head, wind element. We know that in this body is present the wind element. It is present internally and externally. And there is no difference. They are the same. We cannot control the wind element, nor do we own it. It is empty. So just let that guidance sink in, noticing whatever associations might come up for you, whatever thought, and how you might feel towards your body at this moment, having experienced it through the four elements. And I'll be quiet now and we can just practice being with the body, or practice samatha if you'd like, or whatever, and I'll ring the bell in about 15 minutes or so. And as we reach the end of our formal practice, let's take a moment, come back to the body if you've been distracted or using a different object or anchor. And just taking a moment to thank yourself for your practice, for taking this time out on a Sunday, second day of spring, and caring for yourself in this way, nurturing yourself in this way, and reminding yourself that this is not a selfish practice, that this is probably the best thing we can do to care for all beings, especially those around us. And just also taking a moment to recall that present within us, within these bodies, are these elements: the earth, the water, the fire, the wind, and that they are the same internally as they are externally. There is no difference. And we do not control them, nor do we own them. They are empty, empty of any self. And just imagine you can radiate out this wonderful common emptiness that we all have in all directions. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just noticing, as always, whatever arises in the mind or in the body. Well, thank you very much. That was rather nice. I rather liked leading it, although I caught myself making an error on one of the rounds of the arm. I think I went to the lower instead of the upper, and I thought, oh no, I hope I don't throw people off with that. But I am curious how, excuse me, how that was for people. I will admit, the first time I was led through it, which I believe was by Bhikkhu Analayo, I was a little challenged by it. It took me a few rounds to kind of come up with a way of approaching it. But that's just kind of me. Some people really like it. Does anybody have any opinions
Yes,
about it? Any strong reactions? Or
yes, I have.
yes, Luis, please.
Well, it was confusing to me. I
Okay.
didn't clearly understand if this is, a kind of intellectual exercise, trying to, to recognize that we, in fact, are earth, wind, and the two. Or when, while stripping my body, for example, let's take the example of the feet on the air. Should I put the focus on the feet themselves, or trying to find a sensation of the any kind of wind or air in my feet?
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know. Also, for example, the hands and the temperature. Should I put the attention, the focus on the hands, and recognizing that, oh yes, this is the hands, and of course now there are warm or whatever, this is temperature, so there is temperature in my body, or what is it, how is it?
Yes.
What would be the approach, right approach?
So I believe that the idea is to connect to the elements when we can. And so I would think temperature with the hands might be fairly accessible, especially at the level of the skin. We might be able to feel. The wind element in the feet, I can imagine that one being rather difficult to identify with. I think the idea, and this is what, after we talk now, I'm going to talk about or bring up Analio's book on concepts, right?
Yes.
And then on receptivity, those two elements of mindfulness that he discusses in his book. Because I think, Luis, you and I think our minds are quite similar, and I have the very same questions and doubts at the beginning. But what I kind of made up is that by going for it, by trying to find, for instance, the wind element in the foot, we're really connecting with the foot. We're like going inside and really feeling it to try to find it. Now, we may not find it, or we may not find anything that we could really say, okay, that's the wind element. But I think if done according to the guidance, we will connect with the foot. We will connect with the body. And as we're going to see in Analio's book, connecting to the body is his primary practice. That is his object. That is what he recommends. And I believe he thinks that also was what the Buddha recommended. Because the next one, the third one, is even, to me, a little wackier than this one. And that is to contemplate death. So to contemplate our body decomposing and so forth. That one gets to me even a little bit more heady. But so what I make up about it, though, is you just kind of go in there with the idea that this is what you're looking for, this is what you're feeling for, literally like we're kind of feeling for it, and that it will almost magnify. Here's an analogy that might work. If you've ever played tennis, right, you'll know that a tennis ball has lines on it. Also even has fuzz. It can get kind of fuzzy. And the professional tennis players, they look at the lines. And I wouldn't be surprised that the really good ones, they can even see the fuzz, and as a result, the ball is like this big because they're looking very, at a small element of it. And so it might be like that. It might be. I'm just saying, I think that we go in there really deep looking for these particular elements, the bones, the solidity, the density, we're going to feel and connect to the body in a deeper way.
Yes, so this is more an intellectual practice because...
Well, it's using concepts. So why don't we, let's see if anybody else has a question or a comment. Because why don't we go to his book, and together let's figure out what he has to say about concepts. Because I agree, it seems to me also intellectual. But he has quite a bit to say about concepts. And so I will share the screen and I will find here. Okay, so you can all see the title, right? Mindfulness and Concepts. So he just, and this is right at the beginning of the book. I think it's only page 24. So he tackles it, he doesn't try to pretend that, we won't have these questions. So he starts right off. Mindfulness can coexist with the employment of concepts. And he goes on to say, in fact, the instructions in the Satipatthana Sutta, whose function is precisely to foster the establishment of mindfulness, clearly encourages the wise use of concepts. So he's coming right out there and saying that concepts are not antithetical to mindfulness. They're not to be avoided, but in fact, they are to be used and can be used. He says the forward thrust, okay, the movement of the Satipatthana towards liberation does not require keeping the mind free from concepts. The main task is to cultivate a free mind even in the presence of concepts. The path to such freedom is based on the skillful use of certain concepts, namely those that trigger insight. So I think if the concepts are onward leading, right? If they're thrusting us forward towards liberation, then they're okay. Now, if maybe like Luis, if for you and I, they get in the way, then we're probably best to push them aside, don't use them. But for others, or if we find them helpful, then we use them. Or what he points out here, right, is whether they're wholesome or unwholesome. So down here at the bottom of the page, the input provided by the sapajana, that's the wisdom factor, clearly knowing, could be illustrated with the example of yeast. Now, I also found this a little interesting, but for those of you who bake, you'll understand this one better than I did. Could be illustrated with the example of yeast, due to which the dough of mindfulness practice grows into the bread of liberating insight. So I guessed, oh, that's kind of interesting. I said guessed, like yeast guessed? No. I guess that the yeast is like the concept, and without it, the dough would just be flat, right? It wouldn't do its thing. And he also admits, so he says here, continuing with the metaphor, yeast on its own, however, will not be nourishing at all. So concepts all by themselves aren't going to do it. Here, this is best just to read it because he just says it so much better than I can. He says, it is when the cultivation of mindfulness comes in combination with the right amount of the yeast of clearly knowing that the tasty and nourishing bread of insight will result. So it's bringing them together, the cultivation of mindfulness with these concepts. So he says the ultimate reality recognized in early, or the only ultimate reality recognized in early Buddhism is Nibbana, or Nirvana, and it is the one state where we don't have concepts, but the path leading up to this cultivation point is where concepts can be useful. Concepts are useful tools. And for those of you who really like early Buddhism and you want to know more about his sources and stuff, a lot of this is based on his research. Like he says that he doesn't find them in the early Buddhist discourses, but then he does find them in the commentary from the Theravada tradition. And then I think he had something else here. Yeah, he cites something here about tranquility and insight. I'm not going to try to understand that, but so then going here, he writes that the need for concepts is also to some degree implicit, okay? In a passage of this Mahanidana Sutta, which describes experience as involving a relationship of reciprocal conditioning between consciousness and name and form. Now, at the risk of getting too much into like even Vedanta practice and so forth, name and form is kind of a buzz term that you will hear when referring to consciousness and mental activity. I don't know if I'm going to try to explain it. Maybe I'll just read this. From the viewpoint of early Buddhist epistemology, I can never pronounce that word, epistemology, insight into matter cannot take place without name. And that's just because of how our brains work. Insight into matter cannot take place without name, without at least a minimal input of concept. And this is kind of a shortcoming, I think, by us humans, is how our mind works. Or it's not a shortcoming, it's just how it works. The mind is always labeling. It's just what it does, right? And so it's kind of hard to completely get away from concepts, to get away from name and form. You just can't, because that's what the brain does. And then he even writes, only dead matter impinging on dead matter will be free from concepts. So when we get to just muerte, then we're free from concepts. But until that happens, there's going to be concepts. So at the end here, the final part, he writes, in short, not only can Buddhist mindfulness coexist with use of concepts, Satipatthana meditation even has to employ concepts in order to lead to liberation. Woof. So he's kind of insistent about this, right? He's not like, doubting it or whatever. And I do think he's somewhat unique in this perspective. And, that Joseph Goldstein and, Western leaders of mindfulness have followed him, right? They were already teaching, they'd already established this wonderful place where I am now. And then along came Bhikkhu Analayo, and they grabbed him and they said, okay, you're going to live here with us and we're going to pay you, and, you're going to write books. And so they could see his insight and his wisdom. And I trust them implicitly. And so I trust Analayo that these work. And I will end by just adding, though, if it gets in the way, don't use that one. If, for instance, the elements doesn't really feel onward leading, it doesn't establish, that connection with your body, then, try something else. Maybe just a scan of the atomical parts, or maybe it's just a whole body all at once, like we do a lot. Most of the time, that's what we do, right? We just grasp the whole body. You really got to find what works for you and experiment. Like I'll give an example of a concept that I have been using more lately, and that is to remind myself, be the observer. Be the observer. And for some reason, that often will put me a little deeper into awareness. So like, what I used to do a lot of, and I probably lead a lot like this, is I feel, like I'm feeling the breath, I'm feeling the body. But that almost can be kind of like grasping, right? It can be quite close to what it is, to the object, right? To really feel it and experience it. And if I take just a little step backwards, and I've really learned it because of the problems I have with my sinuses. If I take a step back, remind myself, just be the observer, suddenly my attention goes to a neutral place where now I'm just observing the discomfort in my nose. And it is so freeing. Then the discomfort kind of goes away so long as I'm in the observer. The observer doesn't care what it is observing, right? The observer can observe pain, it can observe pleasure, it's going to be the same. And so for me, just that concept, be the observer, or, observe, works very well for me. Or another one that we use sometimes, I'll lead with it is, what are you, or no, what is awareness aware of now? What is awareness aware of now? It's a concept, right? But it's a concept that can be quite useful to just get us out of our head and just be present with whatever is in the field of consciousness, right? Whatever's in the field of awareness. So there's lots of little concepts that we can use to kind of get us where we want to go. And remember also that this is a training process. We're training the mind, right? By continuing to come back to the present moment, come back to the place of awareness, come back to the place of observation, it becomes easier and easier and easier to do. And pretty soon you don't need the concepts. You know, like some people count. Some people, still count the breaths, count the exhales, or, have a little mantra or whatever. All little concepts to kind of help us. And then when you're ready, you don't need them. So I hope that was
It
helpful.
was to me, clarifying.
Any
Yes.
comments more? And if you have I'd love to hear if any one of you have a concept that you really like that's very helpful and you want to offer it with the group, please. I'm sure people would be interested.
Hi. I found with this guidance, if I pay too much attention to the concept earth, water, those get me into my head. But if I focus instead on temperature or movement, and I seek that out, it gets me into the body, and it's much more automatic to feel what's happening in the body. But earth, fire, water does keep me in my head. So switching to the quality gets me in my body faster.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Go with the association, and even with weight or earth, it can be weight, right? The weight of our body, maybe how it sits, or you feel it in the shoulders. Or you could, and I used to do this, try to feel the bones, feel that density, and it comes to me a lot in the form of weight, Well, good. Well, why don't we go to the second part that I wanted to talk about a little bit that Bhikkhu Analayo talks about, and that is receptivity. And this is super important, I think. Let's see here. And this one I think will be a lot easier to see. So he calls this aspect of mindfulness breadth of mind. And what he means by that is an open-minded and broadly receptive attitude. So like a receiving attitude. And maybe that's one reason for those of you who are on the call last week, we talked about how he sees mindfulness as a feminine energy. Sati, mindfulness is a feminine energy because it has this receptive quality to it. I'm going to skip this simile of the cow herder, but just go straight to, where was it? The broad state of mind. Here we go. This part I thought was so interesting and important. With a bit of mindful observation, we in fact easily notice how spacious and allowing the mind can be when we're open to differences and variety, and how narrow and cramped the mind can be when we are self-righteous and judgmental. And this is so helpful in our regular lives, right? And not only is it in the mind where it's either spacious and allowing or cramped, but we can feel it in the body too, right? When we're feeling self-righteous or judgmental, if you can just pause for a moment and feel your body, you're probably going to feel a contraction, a tightening, a tensing. It's almost like, it's almost like if we're self-righteous, we better be ready to protect, defend ourselves, because it's somebody's going to take it, wrongly or differently than we want. So combining an open-minded attitude with being fully in the present moment requires some form of anchor. And this is what we do. We generally pick the body, the breath, maybe sounds or whatever for an anchor. And then this I thought was interesting because this is coming from his experience. It is a common experience that mindfulness is lost and the mind succumbs to some sort of distraction or fantasy. The challenge here is to find an anchor that supports the continuity of mindfulness without losing the qualities of open-mindedness and receptivity. In other words, the anchor should be established without introducing too strong a focus and without too much of an interfering or controlling attitude. So this is Bhikkhu Analayo. He is, and many others, but I love how clear he is that we are really encouraged to have a very open, rather gentle, you might say, awareness, and not to, get too tight. And so this is his sharing of his practice, and this is a man who sometimes practices, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. He writes, in my personal experience, I have found the most helpful tool to meet this challenge to be the type of mindfulness mentioned in this there's a different one, right? Mahatanhasanakaya Sutta. Wow. Mindfulness of the body. Just gonna go like that. So this is his favorite. In simple terms, mindfulness of the body means a form of mindfulness that in one way or another relates to aspects of the body or to the body as a whole. Needless to say, both modes are interrelated. Becoming aware of parts of the body strengthens whole body awareness, just as awareness of the whole body easily leads over to awareness of its different parts. Given the need to avoid too strong a focus, however, the mode of mindfulness of the body that recommends itself for serving as an anchor is awareness of the whole physical body. So this is his suggestion for us, is a whole body awareness. And as I was reading that, another thought I had around the elements, maybe this could also work. He has this refrain when he leads it. He has this refrain where, and I tried to do it, where he reminds us that the earth element is within us and without. It's internal and it's external. The water is in and out, fire in and out, right? And so maybe if our awareness is broad enough where we are including the external with the internal, then we're going to get that kind of soft, receptive, open awareness that he's talking about that's needed in mindfulness by using the elements, the 4 elements. Like we're aware that this body is made of the same material as are the trees and the rocks and everything out there. Because it was never, in his guidance, it was never just about the internal. It was always at the end about the external as well, which to me just opens up the awareness, right? We're not just, so it's almost contrary to what I said earlier. So maybe I was wrong about the lines on the tennis ball. Maybe that's not what he means at all. By connecting the two, he's talking about seeing the whole court, right? The whole court of tennis. Maybe that's the better analogy than the lines on the ball. To be aware of the whole court, which would include the ball and everything around the ball. I'm just kind of learning as I go too about his teachings, and they're amazing and dense. He's very prolific and articulate. And so if anybody has an insight or an idea or a learning, a teaching that you'd like to share, of course, we'd love to hear it.
Well, for me, it's like very important that part about this like kind of softness, not to make of this object of attention, of focusing, like an obligation or something that you should do, or do it like in a very hard way, like asking too much of myself, which is my normal tendency.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for me, this is like really, really, really important.
Yeah, thank you, Nacho. Here, excuse me 1 second. I'm gonna drop this so I don't get blinded. That's a little bit better. You know, one thing I also wanted to mention is that there are many meditations led by Bhikkhu Analayo on YouTube, and I think Luis, either Luis had some by YouTube or another mode of finding them, but you can just go online and there's free guided meditations by him. And, if you like it and you want to practice in his way. We do have a couple minutes more. I wonder. Okay, well, maybe I heard something yesterday that I like, and I'll share it since we have a moment. And interestingly, this is not, Bhikkhu Analayo, for some reason, is not real big on samadhi, or maybe better, he's not real big on jhana, on those absorptions. This is not his thing. His thing, again, is this broad, open, receptive awareness, right? Of which the jhanas, the absorptions, are the exact opposite, where they're very narrowly focused. But I was listening to a Dharma talk as I was driving yesterday. I had many hours in the car. And it was by a jhana expert, actually, named Tina Rasmussen. And she mentioned 4 benefits for doing the samatha practice, which is what we usually do when, usually when we start on a Sunday, we'll spend the first 20 minutes doing samatha practice, pick an object, try to stay with that object. And she mentioned 4 qualities, and I thought they were very beautiful. And so I wrote them down. So the first one is serenity. So that kind of practice is designed to bring us serenity, which I like very much. Serenidad, no? Or tranquility, you could also say. The second one is to practice our concentration, which is a good thing to have, right? We can use it in our regular life, helps us in our practice. In fact, there's one teacher here, we're in California, named Andrea Fella, who's actually taught here before, and she says, concentration is better than chocolate. And I think she means, after, you're meditating, you get a little concentration going. Ooh, the feeling in the body is better than what chocolate can produce. A third element, or a third benefit of the samatha practice, is purification of the mind. And this is kind of a Buddhist concept, but, getting rid of those defilements, that anger, that hate, those resentments. And then the fourth one, she called it thinning of the me. So it's like delgando or something, thinning of the me. But what she's really talking about is that sense of I, that sense of me that we get, right? That causes almost 99% of our suffering. That identity view, I'm a somebody, or my thoughts are important, or all that kind of stuff. And she said that practice thins it. It kind of loosens it up. So I thought that was worth sharing. I mean, if you like the samatha practice, I love it. even though I can't seem to reach the ultimate jhanas with it, but I still enjoy it so much. It has these 4 wonderful benefits. So it's like, yeah, okay, I'll keep doing it. And it is kind of interesting. It's 2 different perspectives. You have Analayo, very much about a loose, receptive whole body awareness. And then you have the Samatha, which is pick an object at the exclusion of others. And both of them are fantastic. Both of them create, great benefits, and very important to those of you who are concerned about insight, concerned about Vipassana. Both of them lead to Vipassana. Both of them lead to insight. Okay, now I used up the last of my couple minutes. So if there's no question or comment, maybe we'll close with a little metta meditation, which also is kind of conceptual, right? And like the others, starts off conceptual, and then it can also lead to just sensation, feeling. Okay. Again, finding a comfortable posture, relaxing into the body. And bringing the attention into the heart area, the heart space. So we're going to offer metta, goodwill, loving kindness to ourselves, to somebody close to us who we care about, somebody we're having difficulty with, and then all beings. So starting with ourselves, may I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. And now bringing to mind somebody in your life who you really treasure, you cherish, you love that person unconditionally. And if there's nobody directly that you can bring to mind, maybe someone you admire. Let's offer this person metta. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And now, let's try to bring to mind somebody with whom we're having some difficulty. Maybe a resentment, maybe a little bit of hurt, a little argument. See if you can loosen that up a little bit with some metta, and if it doesn't happen, no problem, but give it a try. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Now, all beings in all directions without exception, may all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. Finally, to close out, let's offer up the merit of our practice, this Sunday, the teachings, our Buddha nature, and our Sangha. Offer these up to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings live with joy, freedom, happiness in their heart, and be free from suffering, pain, war, discrimination. May all beings find their path, find their practice, and find their purpose. May all beings be free. May all beings awaken. Because I don't have a bell, I will hit this knife against this glass. Yes. No. Ding. Okay, well, thank you very much. So much appreciate you guys showing up each Sunday. It has kept me close to Spain in part, and then close to the Dhamma. And next week, Anna Monica will guide us, you, and hopefully I'll be able to get in, but I'll be driving the 4 hours to the airport. And then I'll see some of you in, a week and a half, definitely in 2 weeks. Ojalá, right? God willing. Anyways, if some of you want to do small groups, Anna Monica, can I make you host, and then could you break out the rooms? And I'm gonna.
Jim, I wanted to ask you.
I've ever done breakout rooms.
Oh, you haven't?
I don't
Okay.
think so. Maybe.
Okay, I can do it. No problem. Okay. Yes, Nacho, tell me, dime.
Uh,
we can stop YouTube probably.